A number of legislators here today. Senator Pasadomo couldn't make it with us, but I want to acknowledge her when we're in Southwest Florida. I want to thank Senator Ray Rodriguez, Representatives Botana, Persons, Malika, and Gia Lombardo for their hard work in this most recent legislative session. We asked the legislature to do a lot, and they delivered for the people of Florida. I think we have a number of good things to talk about, and we're here to talk about one of those good things. Obviously, we were very concerned with public safety during this session. We passed the strongest anti-rioting legislation in the country that really says a couple things. One is we're not going to let local governments defund law enforcement. Now, granted, in Southwest Florida, that's probably not as much of a concern, but that's something that could happen in some of these other enclaves in the state of Florida. By passing this bill and me signing it, that is not going to happen. If a local jurisdiction tries to do that, we're restoring the funding. We also have strong penalties for people that are violent and that threaten others, or harm people's property, and basically sending a message to everyone that wears the uniform, the state of Florida stands with you. And I think that was something that showed great leadership in the legislature. I was happy to sign it, but I also understood that this has been a year like no other. If you go back from the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, we have a lot of folks who had the luxury of maybe working from home or doing meetings on Zoom. The folks who are first responders, people that work for our sheriffs, for our police chiefs, people who are EMTs and firefighters, you can't do the job in public safety on Zoom. You got to show up, you got to wear the uniform, you got to be out, and particularly in those early days and weeks where there was so much uncertainty about what was going to happen with COVID, the men and women who wear the uniform were there for us day in and day out. And of course, we saw last summer riots throughout the United States. You didn't see that up here like you did in Minneapolis or Wisconsin or some of those other places. But law enforcement was under the gun. They were being attacked. They were being, I think, maligned in many respects unfairly. And I think it was important to recognize that they had to still put the uniform on, go out there. And yes, the state of Florida stood with them. Most of our local communities did. But that was a tough environment, I think, for a lot of people to have to work in. So all the things that we've seen over the last year, I thought it was important to do something to show our debt of gratitude. So while some over the last year have been talking about defunding law enforcement, we're proud to say we're funding law enforcement and then some with $1,000 bonuses for all sworn law enforcement, all fire, all EMT personnel throughout the state of Florida. So that's about 175,000 folks. I asked the legislature to do it. They passed it. When I sign the budget, we'll eventually get funds released, and you're going to see bonuses going out to our first responders, hopefully as soon as we can get it done. But I think that this is something that is warranted. It's a way for us to say thank you, and I'm glad that the legislature answered the call. So we're excited to be here. We're excited to celebrate a really great achievement in terms of showing gratitude for our first responders and our law enforcement personnel. So I want to let Sheriff Marceno come up and say a few words in this regard.
Thanks, Governor.
Okay.
On behalf of my family at the Lee County Sheriff's Office, we want to thank Governor DeSantis for his unwavering support for Florida's law enforcement. All Floridians should be thankful for his commitment to maintaining law and order and keeping peace. I was honored to join our great governor recently as he signed the anti-rioting bill into law. And this law ensures that law enforcement can better protect the lives and property of every Floridian. We all know the difference between a peaceful protester and a rioter. We protect peaceful protesters. We arrest rioters. Zero tolerance means zero tolerance. Peaceful protesters can safely exercise their constitutional rights without the threat of having others hijack their voices. With our great governor, the anti-rioting bill addresses these issues head-on, and we can make certain our residents are safe with law and order. And now, we can't thank Governor DeSantis enough for proposing and securing $1,000 bonuses for first responders in recognition of the hardships endured by those who served over the past year. In a year like no other, with the pandemic, law enforcement continued to serve and protect, sometimes at the risk of their own families and well-being. Governor, we know that law enforcement can count on you. In fact, all first responders can count on you, and most of all, the people of Florida can count on you today and tomorrow. Thank you for being an outstanding leader. Governors from all around the country should follow your lead. You are truly the best. Thank you. Thank you, Governor.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks so much. Yeah, this check. All right. Come on. Here we go. Good bonus. Well deserved. All right. You got it? All right. Good stuff. Thanks. Thank you. And I also want to thank the legislators here for just the general work. If we went back a year ago, people were predicting absolute catastrophe for Florida's budget and Florida's economy. I mean, look, we're a service-based economy, tourism, all that stuff had ground to a halt. But we really believe that we needed to have people working, we needed to have businesses operating, we need to have kids in school. And so over the last year, we've obviously pursued that. That's obviously a lot different than what you saw in many of these lockdown states. But I think here we are a year later, and we never took one penny out of our rainy day fund throughout this whole time. And in fact, our rainy day fund has doubled since I became governor. You look at the amount of reserves that we have. These are some of the largest reserves we've ever had in the state's history. The amount of revenue that's coming in because of the economic strength in the state is unlike a lot of the economists in Tallahassee have seen before. So, for example, they're always revised the estimates of the revenue coming in. So they revised, I think the most recent one was the second week of April for April, May, and June. The last 3 months of the fiscal year were included in that. And when they did the budget, we're assuming those estimates. Well, just for April, the state took in $750 million above the estimate from just 3 weeks ago. So they can't even keep up with it in real time because you see so much strength. So that's going to be May and June will likely have over from what the estimate was. If it's even half of what April was, that's between $1 billion and $1.5 billion additional dollars that none of us even included in any type of budget, and so that will be added to the reserves. And so I think what we've been able to do, we're doing these bonuses, which are important. We're doing teacher bonuses, which we're happy about that the legislature did that. We've done a lot on our infrastructure, roads, bridges, water resources, Everglades restoration. Obviously, we protected K through 12. We increased what I had asked for last session and got in terms of increasing the average minimum salary throughout Florida for teachers. So we've done all these different things, and yet we're probably better prepared for whatever can happen down the road than we were even before COVID. And no one would have predicted that, and I think that it puts the state in a great position. But none of that would have been possible, had we done lockdown policies, had we locked kids out of school, had we done a lot of the things that a lot of these other states have done. And so there's a reason why our unemployment rate is lower than the national average by a pretty significant amount, even though CDC has closed one of our main industries, our cruise line. We're suing over that. But just imagine if that was open, that's tens of thousands of jobs that are affiliated with that. So we think we've got good momentum. We think the session worked out very well. These $1,000 bonuses, I think, have been well earned. When we announced it, it was not something that people thought we necessarily could get done, but we got it done, and we look forward to processing the budget, signing dotting the I's and crossing the T's, getting these checks out to our folks who've been on the front lines for us. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm really glad that the Lee County Sheriff's Department has been doing the great work that they've been doing. So thank you. Dave. Job search, yep. Yeah, so we suspended, normally when you're getting unemployment, the whole idea is that that's temporary, and you need to be looking for work to be able to get off unemployment. Obviously, work, because that's what we want everyone to do. Well, when COVID hit, the jobs were, things were just, it was a disaster. So we suspended those job search requirements. But I think it's pretty clear now we have an abundance of job openings. You go to talk to businesses, they want to hire people, particularly in hospitality, restaurants, all these things. And so this is the last month where you're going to have that in place. You are going to have to resume at the end of this month the job searching as part of continuing to receive benefits. And I think that that's absolutely appropriate given the underlying strength of our economy. We absolutely could put more people to work. We have the demand is there. Businesses want to hire more people, and I think that we'll be able to go in that direction very soon.
Governor, can you speak to, we're hearing from so many people in this area and throughout the state who are waiting weeks now for this ID thing to verify for benefits. And can you let us know, was the state aware of existing problems with this ID? We're finding complaints with the Better Business Bureau back in 2018 about this company that the state is partnering with.
I'll have to refer you to Dane Eagle on that.
We can't hear back from him. We call him every single day.
Okay.
He used to represent this area.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Well, I will call Dane after this. I'll let him know that you asked, and I will have him personally follow up with you guys. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, what's the state's stance on corporal punishment in schools? And have you seen the video of the 6-year-old that got a paddling from the school principal?
I have not. I don't think that we've necessarily. I don't think we have a policy. I didn't know that that was necessarily going on. So I have to look at that. I did actually, I did see some type of headline about it. I did not click through, so I don't want to speak out of turn without having seen the actual facts.
Actually have it's legal for kids to get paddled in schools, and we just want to know how.
Yeah, look, I'll have to review the policy and see. Like I said, it was kind of news to me, just because it's not been something that had ever come up before. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
What do you say to activists out there that say that this anti-riot bill might be a direct kind of not slap in the face to people who are protesting this stuff?
Well, it's not at all. First of all, we had a lot of protests in Florida that were peaceful, and no one said anything about it. But I also had a guy jump the fence in the governor's mansion. We saw some places in Tampa and Orlando where people started to get violent. Now, that was reeled in pretty quickly. I called out the National Guard. We were very serious. Obviously, I had people like Carmine who were ready to go for it. But I think if you look around the country, what happens is, like in Portland, these people riot every night. They go, they get their mug shot, and then they get put right back on the street to do it again. That's what we don't want. What we want to say is, you know the difference between going out and doing First Amendment stuff, which obviously we all support. It's part of being American. The minute you harm somebody else, or you harm somebody's property, or you do those types of things, the only way we're going to put a stop to it is to have very swift penalties for it. And so I remember, seeing some of the police, how they were treated was horribly. People throw bricks at them, do all. You've seen in some of these cities, whenever there's a little bit of unrest, literally there'll be a U-Haul that just gets left there, and there's all this stuff in the back of it for these people to do all this stuff. And so we don't want that coming to Florida. There's a lot of places around this country that have not stood by law enforcement, and the tragedy of it is, you're seeing crime spike in certain parts of our country like we haven't seen in decades. And the people that are going to be most affected by that are the most vulnerable members of our society. And in fact, when these guys are getting called out, they're usually getting called out to help victims who can't defend for themselves. And so they need people who wear the uniform to be able to go out and to be able to protect them and to be able to provide a measure of justice when they're being harmed. And what I've seen throughout the country is people stepping back from this, not supporting law enforcement, being very lax, allowing more and more of this to happen, and it's caused increases in crime, and that is going to have devastating consequences. It's so good to have a good economy, schools, all these great things that we always fight for. All of that collapses if you don't have public order and public safety. And so one of the reasons we're here today with the bonuses is because we know just how important that is. And so I think that what we did plants our flag in the ground. It tells people, hey, if you're in Portland You think you can come down to Florida and do this? Stay out of our state. We don't want you coming down here and causing problems. And if anyone does cause these problems, if you try to burn something down, you try to harm anybody, but particularly a police officer during one of these violent assemblies, there will be consequences. They will be swift and they will be severe, and they will be such that people who see that happening will know that's not something that we want to do going forward. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.